Against horse. Both of them driving. Seabiscuit leads by a length. Now Seabiscuit by a length and a half. Wolf has put away his whip. Seabiscuit by 3. Seabiscuit by 3. Seabiscuit is the winner by 4 lengths.
Thank you, Pete. Vice President Mondale, Mrs. Mondale, Donna de Verona, and John Pinto, former White House official Nick Yost and Sandra Rennie, Winifred Grew and Mr. James Wigdell, Heidi Dickerson, John Pinchas and members of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors, Mayor Larry Stransky, and Willits City Council members, members of the Willits Rotary Club and Chamber of Commerce, members of the Christ Church of the Golden Rule, the Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation, Board of Directors, members of the Charles Howard, Tom Smith, and Red Pollard families, ranch hands and ranch residents, past and present, many friends, fans, grassroots activists, supporters, contributors, sponsors, and benefactors of Seabiscuit and the Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation who are here today, some from great distances. Good morning and welcome. I'm Jacqueline Cooper, Executive Director of the Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation. I welcome you here today. In November 1938, in one of the most anticipated sporting events in American history, the horse once nobody wanted, Seabiscuit, engaged the seemingly invincible Triple Crown winner, War Admiral, in a match race at Pimlico in Maryland. 40,000 people witnessed the race. 40 million more listened to it by radio, including President Franklin Roosevelt. Sports writers were moved to call it the match of the century, and so it was. War Admiral ran his fastest time ever at the track, but Seabiscuit still outraced him by 4 lengths and set a blazing track record in the process. Seabiscuit is a story of a great horse beating what seemed like insurmountable odds time and again. In so doing, Seabiscuit inspired and raised the hopes and spirits of a troubled nation under the Great Depression of the 1930s. Today, we've gathered at Seabiscuit's home and final resting place to release a special stamped envelope that celebrates his life and honors his unique place in American sports history. For me, it is truly a thrill to be here today as your MC for this historic ceremony. Now, could you please rise and join Ananda Johnson in the singing of the national anthem? Ananda is with us today from Howard Hospital Foundation here in Willits.
Try.
Please be seated. Thank you, Ananda. That was beautiful. With us today is Heidi Dickerson, field representative of Congressman Mike Thompson, to bestow on us today an official congressional record. Heidi.
Congressman Thompson sends his regrets that he can't be here on this really exciting day, but he's entering into the remarks of Congress, which will be there forever, the remarks of Honorable Mike Thompson commemorating Seabiscuit at Ridgewood Ranch. And I would like to present this to Tracy and Jacqueline. And just at the end, I will say that Congressman Thompson is pleased to enter these remarks into the congressional record, honoring the legendary racehorse Seabiscuit, the Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation, and Ridgewood Ranch. Let us salute their continuing legacy of historic preservation, environmental conservation, and public education on this momentous day. Thank you.
A little cramped for space here. John Pinchas is the chairman of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors, and the supervisors recently approved a resolution that recognizes the historic significance of Seabiscuit and Ridgewood Ranch to Mendocino County. John?
Thank you. It's a very honor for me and the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors to be here in this setting this afternoon. This is a Seabiscuit in the Ridgewood Ranch is quite a real asset, not only to Mendocino County, but all of California and all of the United States, as far as that goes. And the Board of Supervisors totally supports the preservation of this location and its heritage. I have this resolution, which I will present to the foundation. But instead of that, I'd just like to give you just a short little. My father and grandfather built the barns here for Seabiscuit and Charles Howard, here in Ridgewood and in San Ysidro. And Charles Howard personally got my dad his Social Security card in 1937. So thanks to a Democratic president, we have Social Security. Anyways, I'll present this, but I just won't take up much of your time, but I appreciate everybody showing up here. And there's a lot of interest in it. And this is tradition, and this horse affected, my dad talked about the race with Man of War back, and he says, that not just the people and not even our president at that time come to a standstill, the whole United States of America come to a standstill for that race, because it was more than a race. It was about the United States of America getting back up and going again, before World War II, and it was a time of coming out of the Depression and that, and it was he was kind of like the underdog that everybody was rooting for, and he didn't let us down, and I'm sure that the United States of America won't let us down. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Winifred Groh is the district manager of the San Francisco Postal District of the U.S. Postal Service. Winnie and her 10,000 employees deliver nearly 10 million pieces of mail a day to 3 million customers in the San Francisco Bay Area and Northwest California. Winnie.
Good morning. Thank you, Jacqueline, Vice President and Mrs. Mondale, Mrs. Livingston, ladies and gentlemen, all our honored guests. It's a great pleasure to be here, and on behalf of the United States Postal Service, I want to welcome you as we unveil and dedicate the stamp, a very special stamp in our Postal Service collection that commemorates a horse that won not only won the hearts of the nation, but also inspired so much hope at a very difficult time in our history, Seabiscuit. I especially want to thank Tracy Livingston, Jacqueline Cooper, Gary Kozel, and all the other members of the Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation who have helped organize today's event. This is a wonderful venue, and I can't think of a better place to do the stamp unveiling and do our first day of sale celebration. I also want to thank Vice President Mondale and Mrs. Mondale for being here on this auspicious occasion. It's really a great honor to have you both be with us today. Doesn't usually happen on our stamp event, so it's quite special, quite special. And I want to thank all of you for coming out on this historic occasion. It's really quite wonderful. Each year the Postal Service receives about 50,000 suggestions for stamps to be released. And of those, we actually release about 100. From the time a stamp is suggested to the selection to the design to the release takes about 3 years. And you might wonder why that takes so long. And it's not just bureaucratic red tape, trust me. It's really about making sure that what the stamps that we put out there are very special, but that we don't offend anyone or do anything that would be just not right in American standards. But I think it's also important that we think about the life of a stamp. Today's the first day of the life of a stamp, and starts with the unveiling and the first day of sale. But the stamps have another life, and I kind of like to share my little thought on that with you. When you think about the stamps that you've looked at over the years depicting famous people, events, buildings, all kinds of things in American history, when you put them all together, they make a beautiful tapestry of American history and of our daily lives. So we really like to think of stamps in that kind of context, and certainly Seabiscuit is a very special part of that. And these days, with escalating unemployment, with the financial difficulties that we're going through, our country is in a state not too unlike the days when Seabiscuit actually ran and won his race. And so I'd kind of like to think that maybe unveiling the stamp today symbolically will be the part of changing the course the country's on, and we'll be able to take off to a new beginning. By unveiling this stamp, we want to remember that against all odds, perseverance and steadfast resolve, the world's economy, the Postal Service, and the life in America will come from behind and stride to a great, brilliant finish. Thank you.
Thank you, Winnie. Laura Hillenbrand wrote a best-selling book on Seabiscuit. The book inspired the Academy Award-nominated film that brought Seabiscuit to life for new generations of Americans and spurred the effort for a Seabiscuit stamp. Laura could not be with us today, so she sent along the following statement. Quote, "In the decade of anguish known as the Great Depression, rags to riches Seabiscuit was a hero and a source of hope and inspiration to millions of Americans. This new U.S. postage stamp, depicting the moment that won him a lasting home in our cultural memory, is a beautiful and fitting tribute to this great American icon." Unquote. I am pleased that Laura Hillenbrand's father, Reverend Bernard Hillenbrand, and her stepmother, Alice Ann Walbrook, could join us. Could you please stand and be recognized? By the way, today is also Reverend Hillenbrand's 84th birthday. Congratulations. We also have members of the Howard family with us today. Michelle and Haley Howard. Could you please stand? Welcome. John Pollard Sr., the nephew of Seabiscuit's jockey Red Pollard. John. And the nephew of Seabiscuit's trainer Tom Smith, James Watkins, and his wife Lucy. I believe they're all here. Here they are. Welcome, you both. Welcome. Seabiscuit is a cherished figure in American history. Several years ago, the Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation was formed to protect and promote the legacy of this great horse and to restore and preserve the ranch where Seabiscuit recuperated, lived, and died, and was buried. In addition, the home of Seabiscuit inspires hope today with its therapeutic writing program for developmentally challenged children as well as adults. Erin Livingston is the writing instructor. Erin. Tracy Livingston, her father, is president of the Seabiscuit Foundation. Tracy.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I'd like to address you, our special guests here today, at a moment unprecedented in our community and our nation. When I say unprecedented, because never before has a champion racehorse meant so much. As a member of the community of Willits in the United States, we can take pride in the fact that a once little-known underdog provided such a source of hope and inspiration during desperate times. In what was perhaps the greatest match race in history, Seabiscuit cemented his place in history, capturing the imagination of an entire nation, even President Roosevelt. Today, it is an honor to have Seabiscuit added to the commemorative stamp program and to host this special first day of sale ceremony at his home and final resting place. I would like to express a special thank you to Lane Owens of the U.S. Postal Service Stamp Development Department and Roy Betts, the Community Relations Manager, for making this event possible, as well as James Widgell, U.S. Postal Communications Program Specialist, and Winifred Grew, San Francisco Postal District Manager. It was the wish of Charles Howard to protect Ridgewood Ranch, a special place where his son Frankie died in a vehicle accident in 1926, and a place where his buddy Seabiscuit lived out his last 7 years of his life. It is also the wish of the current owners of Ridgewood Ranch, Christ Church of the Golden Rule, to protect and preserve this property into perpetuity. And in the words of Charles Howard, he said, "The future is the finish line." And so the race is still on. 2 years ago, the former Vice President of the United States and the Ambassador to Japan, Walter Mondale, and his wife, Joan Mondale, traveled from Minnesota to help us celebrate the return, the unveiling, and dedication of the bronze sculpture of Seabiscuit. Excuse me, over there. Afterwards, the Mondales agreed to become honorary members of the Seabiscuit Foundation. And I'm going to have to toss water. Thank you. Little glitch. Okay. Afterwards, the Mondales agreed to become honorary members of the Seabiscuit Foundation board. Jacqueline, you're going to have to continue.
I'd be honored, Tracy. Thank you. It is springtime in Northern California and pollen is in the air, as many of you probably have noticed. To pick up where Tracy left off, the Mondales agreed to become honorary board members of the Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation to help out in any way they could. And we didn't know it at the time, but Mrs. Mondale was and is still a member of the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee that recommended the Seabiscuit stamped envelope that will be unveiled in just a few minutes. Mr. and Mrs. Mondale, thank you so very much for all you have done for us. In addition, thank you, Mrs. Mondale, that you've decided to travel here on Mother's Day, no less, just so you could be with us today's ceremony. Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Mondale.
Welcome. We're here to celebrate the extraordinary achievements of this little brown horse. Small in stature, but great in the heart. He embodied the bond between man and beast. A poet wrote, "The essential joy of being with horses is that they bring unto us contact with the rare elements of grace, beauty, spirit, and fire." Seabiscuit certainly embodied those concepts of grace, beauty, spirit, and fire. And I think Laura Hillenbrand captured that spirit in her triumphant story of the lives of the people who surrounded him, as well as Seabiscuit himself. And thank you to the United States Postal Service for this commemorative stamped envelopes, which will honor Seabiscuit. And finally, I would like a special thanks to Tracy Livingston and Jackie Cooper for their inspired leadership of the foundation to preserve this historic ranch and previous memories of America's greatest racehorse. Thank you.
I'm here as a fellow traveler this morning. Some years ago, Joan got hooked on Seabiscuit. She read Laura Hillenbrand's magnificent book, I think twice, and then we had to watch the movie more than twice. And so we had to come out here 2 years ago when we dedicated Seabiscuit statue, and we had to be here today when the stamp was commissioned. Now, Joan's on the stamp commission. They have a rule on the stamp commission that individual members do not disclose publicly where they stood on particular stamps. It's a public position that the commission decided it. But I am free to say that Joan was very pleased that Seabiscuit. When we look at the stamp, which will be unveiled in a minute, we'll see that it's a magnificent reproduction, portrait of that moment when Seabiscuit pulled away from War Admiral in the Pimlico match race of 1938, which Laura says in his book was the greatest horse race in the history of horse racing. And it is remembered, I noticed in the article about the Kentucky Derby the other day, about Mind That Bird, the lead article in the New York Times ends up talking about Seabiscuit and all the horses he left in the dirt in his time. And now Seabiscuit will be memorialized in this stamp. And I think that is a step forward, because it's a way of not just us here, but the nation saying Seabiscuit is a national treasure, and we're proud of her, him. We're proud of those who worked with him, and it's a glorious day to rejoice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Mondale. Also with us today is the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee member Donna DeVarona and her husband John Pinto. Donna is an Olympic gold medal swimming champion and the first female network TV sportscaster in history. Donna, do you have a few words you would like to share with us this morning?
Thank you. It was unexpected. I grew up in Lafayette, California, and in San Francisco, and found my career here in sports. And I joined the Stamp Advisory Committee with Joan a little while ago, and was delighted, I could say that, when the Seabiscuit stamp was issued. I was interviewed today about why I came out here and why I felt connected to Seabiscuit. And I think we all have stories, but when I was at UCLA, I used to sit with a bunch of athletes, and there was a young man that used to sit at the table with us. He loved track and field. I lost him, and then many years later, in 1992, when I was working on restructuring the Olympic Committee, I found this gentleman again. And he told me this story about how he met this young lady, and she said I'd babysat for her. Well, years ago, I'd taken a bus all the way up to Reading to compete in a competition, and during that time, between events, I babysat for this woman. Well, that young woman was Kathleen Kennedy, and the young man was Frank Marshall, who produced Seabiscuit. The life does come full circle. Seabiscuit loved to win, and as Americans, we love the underdog, and we love those that win. They win for us. They give us hope. And it's just such an honor to be back home today, to celebrate this wonderful moment, and to be proud of an America that treasures those that give back to us and inspire us. So thank you for letting me make these comments, and congratulations to you all, and to this wonderful ranch that does so much to inspire young people of special needs, that reaches out in that spirit to help those that want to help themselves but extends the helping hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And now could Mr. and Mrs. Mondale join me and Tracy, Winnie, and Willits Postmaster Dale Briggs, as well as Donna de Verona, in the unveiling of the Seabiscuit stamped envelope, please. What a momentous occasion. Now, Dale, if you would please begin with the imprinting. Thank you. As Dale is affixing the imprints on the envelopes, I'd like to recognize two very special people in the audience. Actually, one was not able to join us today due to illness. However, I would still like to make mention of that person. Maggie Van Onstrand of Pine Mountain is here with us today, and Chuck Lustig of Sacramento was unable to attend. Both led a nationwide grassroots effort and gathered thousands of signatures to get a Seabiscuit stamp issued. As an Arkansas soybean farmer, a Louisiana pharmacist, a California jockey masseuse, a Kentucky woman who cans hams for Hormel, a Massachusetts landscape designer, and a quilting club were among the many that they enlisted for the effort. Maggie, thank you. Please stand, Maggie. Must have the glasses. Dale is affixing an official first day of sale pictorial postmark created specially for this occasion today. Bravo. With us today are artists Stan Watts and Kim Corpany, which produced the life-size bronze sculpture of Seabiscuit, of Seabiscuit here on the lawn, as well as the miniature bronze sculpture titled final victory. The sculpture depicts Seabiscuit and Red Pollard crossing the finish line for their win of the 1940 Santa Anita Handicap. The sculpture was specially commissioned by Charles Howard's great-grandson and Seabiscuit Heritage Foundation board member, Colonel Michael Howard. Stan and Kim, could you please stand and be recognized? Ananda, I will ask you to bring the garland for us at this time. Oh. During Preakness Week, each year at this time, the Postal Service operates a substation at Pimlico where the great match race depicted in the stamp was held. We've made arrangements to have a stamped envelope sent to the substation manager, Melody Davis Fanazzo, so that during this Preakness Week, we can recognize Pimlico's pivotal role in the great match race and the thousands of fans who witnessed it. Mr. and Mrs. Mondale have written a note to Melody, which they are now inserting, or will be inserting, in the envelope. Thank you, Dale. To conclude today's ceremony, we have asked Margie Handley of the Howard Hospital Foundation and Connie Wiley to place a garland over the statue of Seabiscuit. Margie is the president and chairman of the board of the Howard Foundation. The Howard Hospital was established by Seabiscuit's owner Charles Howard in memory of his younger son Frankie after he was tragically killed in an auto accident on a ranch. Howard Foundation is now raising funds for a new state-of-the-art teaching hospital in Willits. Connie is the former mayor of Belvedere, California, just north of San Francisco. When Connie was 10, a friend of the family's, Charles Howard, invited a horse-crazed little girl to the winner's circle after a Seabiscuit victory at Bay Meadows in San Mateo. Not only did Connie meet Seabiscuit, she also got to pet him. It looks lovely. Tracy will be making a very special presentation for Mrs. Mondale at this time. Mrs. Mondale. Thank you, Kim and Stan, for bringing along this beautiful statue today. Thank you all so very much for coming, many of you from great distances. A special thank you also to all who made this day possible. Christ Church of the Golden Rule, our board of directors, our contributors, and event sponsors. Thank you. And we end as we began with Pete Estabrook, who for the past 23 years has been the racetrack bugler on the Northern California Fair Circuit. Pete, please, a final call to post.
Well, I was charmed by the come from behind part of this horse's life. It wasn't a beautiful animal when it was young, and it was small, and it was its legs didn't look right when they ran, and racehorses are supposed to be large and beautiful, and this one wasn't. But somehow he was able to continue. I mean, at one period he ran in 26 races and won one race, but he didn't give up. And I think that idea of keeping going, perseverance, is important for all of us to learn about in life. It's a lesson everybody can learn. And so I was charmed by the story. Laura Hillenbrand is a brilliant writer, and I enjoyed reading it. And I'm very happy to be here that it has a life beyond just a book. We have a lot of men and women on stamps, and that's wonderful. But what about an American legend? What about a horse that embodies perseverance and don't give up in our national life? Well, there are all kinds of projects and ideas in the works for the Heritage Foundation. And I think everybody's been looking forward to this day and this revealing, unveiling of this beautiful prize. So there will be more activities later on.
Well, I think we might comment just a moment about what Joan was talking about. There's a foundation, Seabiscuit Foundation here, that's trying to preserve the ranch, Seabiscuit, where all the Seabiscuit training and where Seabiscuit remains, to preserve this bit of American history. The National Trust for Historic Preservation has designated this area as an important area to be preserved. There's the story of Seabiscuit, there's the story of what it stands for in America, and it is expensive. These old buildings, many are classic buildings, used to be all over the place, but these are some of the last buildings of their kind in all of California. To try to preserve this, protect it, and keep the history and what it teaches all of us alive is taking place here on this Ridgewood Ranch, and we need to help that.